trained, providing education of those neural nets becomes more complex, more challenging, but we get much more intelligent behavior. When we can build neural nets that are at a human scale, when we can see how the human brain is organized from these very high-resolution scans, we will understand these human processes in far greater detail, and we will have systems that allow us to basically emulate those algorithms, create entities that have human-level complexity and richness. And I think we will see a great diversity of entities. It doesn't mean we're necessarily going to just create non-biological versions of humans.
If we send the nanobots through the bloodstream, there are technologies today where an electronic device can actually detect the firing of a nearby neuron and can actually cause the neuron to fire and suppress it from firing. So there's already means of doing non-invasive two-way communication between the neural world and the electronic world. These neurons could travel through the brain, and because they'll all be on a wireless local area network, which is technology that Bill is pioneering, we'll be able to expand human intelligence, creating new neural networks. We'll be able to create virtual reality from within. The nanobots take up positions by all the nerve fibers coming from all of the senses. They can turn off the senses from our real senses, provide the signals that we would be receiving if we were in the virtual environment, and therefore provide full immersion virtual reality involving all of the senses. I think that'll be a feasible scenario by 2029. And so meetings like this one, we could all meet in virtual reality. We'll, in fact, as virtual reality becomes more compelling and more realistic and more detailed, our encounters, from business negotiations to sensual encounters, will take place in virtual environments. I think we will expand both human experience. These nanobots, since they are inside the brain, can also stimulate the neurological correlates of emotion. I talk about in my book this one girl, when a particular spot in her brain was triggered, she started to laugh. They thought they had just triggered some involuntary laugh response. But actually, they had triggered the perception of humor. She just found everything hilarious whenever they triggered this one spot. "You guys are just so funny standing there," she would say. Well, I really only have time to touch on these subjects. Let me say something about Bill Joy's discussion in Wired magazine, the whole issue of the positive and negative aspects of technology. Technology has always been a double-edged sword. You don't have to look further than today's technology to see that. I think the key point I would make is that it's not feasible to select the positive from the negative sides of technology. Now, Bill said he started having these nightmares when he met me in a bar at the George Gilder conference. That's why I don't hang out in bars very much. But I think I think it's a challenge. There are grave, difficult downsides to these technologies. Certainly, that's already taken place in the 20th century. The story of the 21st century hasn't been written yet. I think the only way to forego technology in general would be to have a totalitarian system that basically would use technology to enforce no one else having technology. I don't think it's feasible to stop technology in specific areas that are going to be dangerous. I mean, I'm going to work on these safe technologies of more intelligent software and faster computers, but not this dangerous technology of nanotechnology. That doesn't mean that we have to ignore these downsides, but well, I was going to read you another quote from Kaczynski, but I don't really have time for that. But he makes the point that you can't have much progress in, say, medicine, which he acknowledges as a positive, without the whole technological system and everything that goes with it. And of course, he comes to the conclusion that the bad parts of technology outweigh the good parts, that the danger is so salient that we should not go down the technological route. But in my mind, it's inevitable because technology development is decentralized. We're moving towards the kinds of scenarios that Bill talks about, and he'll articulate in far more detail, not through some centralized project, but through thousands tens of thousands of interacting projects, each of which are working on some benign further advance based on some competitive economic force that they're, or industry that they're contending with. The net result of many different generations of technology through all of these interacting means of understanding the human brain, developing smaller and smaller technology, more and more powerful computers, better biological models of intelligence, is to develop some systems that would seem to have some downsides. But in my mind, that's true today. If you describe today to people hundreds of years ago, they would find it very frightening. They would say, well, why take the risk of the kinds of downsides that, for example, a biotechnology means exist today in a routine bioengineering laboratory to create bioengineered pathogens that would be extremely destructive. But very few people today would want to go back to the short, brutish, poverty-filled, disease-filled, short, tenuous lives that 99% of the human race suffered with. So I think we have no choice but to find sophisticated ways to manage the dangers, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we go.